J E
J-E-T-S.
T S. Jets,
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 Jets, Jets,
Jets.
Jets. Hello, folks. Welcome to episode 28 of season 2 of the GOAT series. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler. Welcome to Jeremy Hadler's YouTube channel. And today I'm going to be talking about the greatest Jets player in franchise history here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go over the rules here like I always do here on this channel, which is choosing 5 candidates of who I think is the greatest Jets player of all time in their franchise history up to this point here, ladies and gentlemen. Criteria that I always look for in these candidates is their accomplishments with the team, their tenure with the team, how they played with the team, their stats with the franchise, how are they on and off the field. And of course, I do honorable mention, but today we have a guest, not a Jets fan, but we got a Texans fan because why not? Just to represent the Jets out here, which is Mr. Phil Rondo.
Yo, what's up? I am the resident Texans fan reporting in from my grungement. That's grungy and basement.
So he's reporting in, he's filling in for the Jets here, folks, and he will have his honorable mention. I will have my honorable mention. End of the video, we choose our ultimate Jets GOAT here, ladies and gentlemen. But let's start off with Phil. Who is your honorable mention, sir?
My honorable mention, right? So I was looking at the list, and there was one name that I thought should be added as an honorable mention, and that man's name is the Wayne Krebit.
All right.
Now, Wayne Krebit, all right, going off his stats, he's got 580 receptions for 7,300 yards for 41 touchdowns in his pretty decently long career, about a decade's work going in with the Jets. And this is the guy that essentially created the slot role that would be modernized and adapted upon. You know Danny Amendola?
Yep.
Wayne Krebit was Danny Amendola's role model, and for a good reason.
Okay.
Yeah, he was utilized in the slot, and he would just rack up receptions with the Jets. He has one of the top reception leaders for the Jets in their entire history, and I think he absolutely deserves an honorable mention.
For my honorable mention, I'm going to go with the best Jets wide receiver of all time, in my opinion. I'm going to put it here as my honorable mention because he fortunately does not make the higher list, but he has to be recognized as a wide receiver, and that's Don Maynard, who's a wide receiver for the Jets that played 10 seasons for him. He's a Hall of Famer, one-time Super Bowl champion, one-time AFL champion, two first-team All-Pro, two second-team All-Pro, four-time AFL All-Star, which is the Pro Bowl today here, ladies and gentlemen. One-time AFL receiving touchdowns co-leader, known for his speed, his route running, big playmaking, played in a crucial Super Bowl number 3 here over the Baltimore Colts and got the Jets the victory, their only Super Bowl win. And he did it through dealing with injuries in that game, Phil. That has got to get commenced. He was the first player in pro football history to get 10,000 receiving yards, and he retired as the AFL's all-time leading receiver, which is pretty crazy to hear. His stats: 627 receptions, 11,732 receiving yards, 88 receiving TDs. He has to get put on this list here, Laisha. He has to be put on this list.
Not a bad honorable mention, but I don't think Danny Amendola had him hanging up on his wall.
I mean, underrated player, in my opinion. A very underrated player.
Not a bad choice.
Who do you have next as we move on from our mention to the list here, folks? Who you got, Phil?
So, starting off this list, you know him and you may recently hate him. It's Mark Gastineau.
Yeah.
Now, a bit of a controversial figure nowadays, but we're going to focus on his time in the NFL. All right. He played 10 seasons for the Jets, 4 first team All Pros, 1 second team All Pros, 5 Pro Bowls, 2 times sack leader. And of course, he's in the Jets Ring of Honor. He was an incredible pass rusher for sure. Such relentless energy, an interesting personality, constantly dominated quarterbacks, leading the NFL in sacks twice in 1983 and 84, respectively. He's just one of the most polarizing but feared defenders back in his era.
There you go.
And he absolutely deserves to be mentioned as one of the possible Jets greats.
There we go. I mean, he had 107.5 sacks with folks. That was unofficial back in the day because NFL sacks didn't start till like the early 80s. So, and he played in the 70s. So that's what it says on the books, but it's unofficial because there are sacks that probably should get counted more. But he was very close. Well, he had the record until it was broken by Michael Strahan, and that's the controversial thing, as Phil was just talking about, because he was part of the New York Sack Exchange defensive line, which is one of the big, greatest defensive lines in football history. But going back to the sack record, he had it until Brett Favre fell down, is what he claims purposely, but he didn't, according to Favre. And Michael Strahan won that sack record if you look at the highlight here, folks. So,
Now, if you ask me, he probably fell down, but at the same time, if you look at the tape,
mhm,
even if he didn't fall down, I think he was getting to him.
that's true. I'll give it to you, Phil. I'll give it to you. But hey, he can complain all he wants. He probably should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's, as Phil mentioned before, an interesting guy. Very interesting guy. All right, let's move on to our next player here, who I'm going to continue with the New York Sack Exchange, which you can go check out on ESPN 30 for 30 documentary. Have not watched that yet, but will do soon. Interesting documentary, as it'll talk about the Brett Favre situation, what happened there. But next player on our list here is Joe Klecko. Played 11 seasons for the New York Jets. He's a Hall of Famer, one-time defensive player, two-time first-team All-Pro, one second-team All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler, one-time sacks leader. Made the Jets Ring of Honor, guys, and retired by the Jets. He was a dominant defensive lineman for the Jets from 1977 to 1987, so 10 years. Again, part of the New York Sack Exchange defensive line, one of the greatest defensive lines in NFL history of all time. What is he known for? His incredible versatility. So if you put him in different positions on that line to go at different angles on the right side or left side, he'll still work it, or even the middle. He'll still work pretty good with that. So that stood out to me about him, his versatility, but his toughness and his work ethic. He had incredible work ethic and he was very tough. So if he got hurt, he would just tape it up and go right back on the field and play. He played a major role in the Jets' playoff runs in the early 80s. The Jets, Phil, have the longest drought currently in the NFL. They have not been to the playoffs since the Packers won the Super Bowl. That is a long time. So the Jets, they could have had Aaron Rodgers, but they didn't get it. But we'll see how the Jets. I mean, that was probably the best days of the Jets besides winning that Super Bowl. But to give you his stats real quick, again, unofficial, like I mentioned with Mark, is 78 sacks. So unofficial because he played for the 70s and he played for the 80s. So unofficial there, but has to get recognized here, ladies and gentlemen. Has to get recognized here.
Absolutely. And the New York Sack Exchange was crucial in their success for sure. You could pretty much pick anyone on there and put them in for the GOATS conversation.
Absolutely. Next part of our list, we're going to go for running back here that played 8 seasons for the Jets, and that's Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin is a Hall of Famer, one-time first-team All-Pro, two-time second-team All-Pro, five-time Pro Bowler, one-time rushing yards leader, made the Jets Ring of Honor, got his number retired by the Jets. His stats, folks, 10,302 rushing yards, 58 rushing TDs, 367 receptions, had total scrimmage yards of over 12,741. What is he known for, Phil and the folks? Is his consistency and his durability. So, like I mentioned with Joe, if you get taped up or banged up, he still fight it out there and still go. He has the most rushing yards in the Jets franchise history. That's not saying much of the Jets, but they've had some good running backs back in the day. If you ask LaDainian Tomlinson, he had a nice couple years there with the Jets. He was a great leader. He was a team captain. And he had great work ethic. So Curtis Martin has to get recognized here, and LaDainian Tomlinson is known for a Charger, not the Jets here, folks. Next player here on this list. This guy is more well known, I would say, in the Jets franchise history, either on the field or off the field, because there's controversy with him, and Phil knows that very well, and that is Joe Namath. Played 12 seasons for the Jets, one-time Super Bowl champion, one-time Super Bowl MVP. How'd he win that? Well, he said to the press, they're guaranteed to win, his famous saying. That led the Jets to winning the Super Bowl. But ever since then, the Jets have not been back to the Super Bowl, haven't won a Super Bowl at all here, folks, and they haven't had much success since then. So, curse for Joe Namath is what it is to Jets fans. This is the curse of Joe Namath. He's a one-time comeback player, one-time second-team All-Pro, one-time Pro Bowler, one-time passing yards leader, one-time passing TDs leader, one-time AFL champion, one-time MVP for the championship of the AFL, one-time AFL MVP, one-time first team All-Pro AFL, three-time second team AFL, four-time AFL All-Star, four-time AFL All-Star, same thing as a Pro Bowl here, ladies and gentlemen. Two-time AFL passing yards leader. Stats. Now this, I don't understand how this guy gets in the Hall of Fame with these stats here, Phil. He had a 50.2 completion percentage, 27,057 passing yards, 170 passing TDs. Okay, not bad. But his interceptions, 215. Yikes. And he has 65.8 passer rating. Broadway Joe is what his nickname is. Known for his swagger, he always dressed up very casually. He had that nice jacket he always liked to have. He was a leader on the field and off the field. That's off the field, maybe a little controversial to some Jets fans, but he was a good leader on the field for the Jets. He always make big plays. You look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, all those quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, they make those plays. Well, they learned it from Joe Namath from watching his tape because he was the guy who started it for the NFL and took it to the next level here, folks, which has been taken by those quarterbacks I mentioned before. So he's a cornerstone for that. And he's the first quarterback in NFL history to throw over 4,000 passing yards in a season. That has happened every single year now. Almost every NFL quarterback gets over 4,000 passing yards. So back then it was a lot harder. So got to give appreciation to that. Now, the interesting thing I like to mention with Joe Namath of when he mentioned guaranteed and they won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl three, he won the Super Bowl MVP. But in that game, Phil, he did not throw a passing TD at all in that game. How do you win the MVP if you didn't even pass a TD in that game? That's my question here. Let's move on to our next player. This guy's in the Hall of Fame. Deservedly so. Played 8 seasons for the Jets. That is Darrelle Revis. Back in our childhood days, for me and Phil, we watched him play and very good at Madden football. I always liked using him in my Madden for CB. He's a three first-team All-Pro. Made the Jets Ring of Honor. Five-time Pro Bowler. His stats here, folks: 25 interceptions, 3 pick sixes, 112 pass defended, 10 fumble recoveries, 388 combined tackles. What is his nickname? Revis Island. Now you look at some players today like Jair Alexander, goes by Jair Island because of Darrelle Revis, because Darrelle Revis was a lockdown CB. You put him with Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Chad Ochocinco. They do nothing with Darrelle Revis. He locked them down, and he got 6 interceptions when playing against those guys. Very known for his elite coverage skills because he was a lockdown guy. He was very physical and he had high football IQ. Those are the things that stood out to me with Darrelle Revis. Has to definitely get mentioned here. And he got the Jets very far in the playoffs the last time we were in it, Phil. They almost won the Super Bowl because of Darrelle Revis back in the day. So that has to get mentioned here with Darrelle Revis. Has to be on this list here, ladies and gentlemen. Last player here on this list, folks, is Kevin Muave. Offensive lineman, played 8 seasons for the Jets. Offensive linemen, they don't get that much appreciation nowadays, and especially back in the day. He's a Hall of Famer here, ladies and gentlemen. 5 first-team All-Pros. One, two, three, four, five. 5 first-team All-Pros. 1 second-team All-Pro. 6-time Pro Bowler. Jets Ring of Honor. What does he know here, folks? His toughness, his high football IQ, his intelligence, very good. Great leader. He was really good at leader. He always, even when he got hurt, he powered through and he's very good durable, just powered through it. And he was very good. He had a tough job having to guard some not so good quarterbacks like Vinny Testaverde, Chad Pennington, not so good. And the big thing with him is he helped pave the way of Curtis Martin, which Curtis Martin won the 2004 NFL rushing title, who I already mentioned on his list. So he was pretty good in helping sustain that rushing title. So Kevin Wallaway has to get appreciation there. So Kevin has to get appreciation there. What do I also like about Kevin is durability once again. So as he's going through the injury, he's powering through it and played his out. Very consistent player, always played consistent player, always played very good every single time. And he started 118 consecutive games. That's what I mean about the durability here, folks. Before suffering a season-ending triceps injury in 2005. Durability what stands out to me of Kevin, and very good at his position. Has to be a Hall of Famer, which he is already here, folks. Has to get put on this list here to me, folks. Has to. Now we get to our ultimate GOAT here for the Jets. We're going to start with our guest, Phil. Who we think is the greatest Jets player of all time. Folks, comment right now who you got in the chat. Who should be on this list that we haven't talked about already? Leave in the chat here, folks. But Phil, who is your Jets GOAT?
Well, I'm going to have to go with the man that led the team to their one Super Bowl win, Joe Namath. Now you
Wow.
put a little bit of a shade was thrown towards Joe Namath, right? Of course, he did have that special guarantee, right? And whether he sold his soul or not, we'll never know. But it didn't really pass for touchdowns in that game, but he still led them through to the offensive capabilities, right? And of course, it was an era where running was much more prominent. Of course, today we have a much more of a passing league.
Hmm.
And of course, you look at passer rating, it's not very applicable for games so long ago because
Yeah.
passer rating is really more for the modern era. So I don't think passer rating matters too much. But when you look at Joe Namath, his leadership, his passing yards, he definitely was a reason that they got to the big stage in the first place. And they wouldn't win a bowl without him. So I'm going to have to go with Joe Namath.
Respectable. I respect that decision, Phil, despite his terrible stats and questionable being in the Hall of Fame. But Jets franchise, I appreciate that pick. That's a good pick. For me here, ladies and gentlemen, I can't put Joe Namath because the stats concern me because when you throw over 215 interceptions and you have less touchdowns and more interceptions in your career, that is not good in my opinion. Despite his Super Bowl, I appreciate that, but for me, it comes down to two guys for me, and that's Kevin Darrelle Revis. Kevin, very consistent player, durable, five first team All Pro. That is unheard of. In the 8 seasons he played, half those seasons, more than that technically, he had a first team All Pro. Pretty good to see that. He should have had six because whoever voted him second team All Pro that one time does not know what they're doing here, folks. He should have got six first team All Pro. Darrelle Revis, he had phenomenal time. He went to go win a Super Bowl. He went to go win a chip with the Patriots. That's not so good for the Jets fans. But for me, I have to give it to Darrelle Reeves here because what he did made the Jets so good, in my opinion, here with getting the three first team All Pros was pretty awesome to do and gets five Pro Bowls in his entire time with the Jets and then came back to play for him again. To me, being a lockdown corner, Phil, is pretty hard to do, especially in his era because of the amount of good receivers were in there. Randy Moss, considered one of the best receivers of all time. Ocho Cinco, he was pretty good in his era. Terrell Owens, very good. And you put any good receiver up against him, he lock him down right away. So Darrelle Reeves has to be my go here. Greatest elite press coverage corner I have ever seen in my life. Greatest. So I'm going to put him as the Jets GOAT for me here, ladies and gentlemen. But that is all we got here, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure to leave in the comments and leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. But leave in the comments of who do you think is the Jets GOAT? Who should we have talked about before? And Phil, thank you for coming out to give your great answer of Joe Namath as your GOAT.
Of course, of course. And I am interested in what the people have to say about this. And never forget Wayne Krebit. All right, he was the godfather of slots.
All right, well, that'll do it here, folks. That's a wrap in the studio. And as always, Jets, 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 Jets.
Jets, 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 Jets.